Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Brian Stafford with the Kentucky National Guard. I'm going to do a presentation, just a general overview of the things that the National Guard does here in Kentucky, some of the capabilities we can offer to you all, how to obtain those. And then Captain Douglas will speak with a more informed viewpoint of what our cyber capabilities are, because I have to plead borderline ignorance on the great things we can do for you all on cyber resilience and the evaluations they can offer. So I plan on going over, again, what our capabilities are in Kentucky, what we can offer to you all, how to obtain those capabilities, both for day-to-day events and during emergencies. I tend to talk fast, but please, if you have a question, don't hesitate to ask. I'm told that I can see on the screen over here if somebody has a question, and I'm sure Ms. Litton will point it out if I fail to notice. So here's the agenda, the things I intend to speak to you all about today, some historic missions we've done, what our structure is, what our authorities and limitations are, the planning and outreach programs that we are involved in, how to access and request Kentucky National Guard support, and then I'll open it up to questions specific to my presentation, and then I'll turn it over to Captain Douglas. Going back to 2022, the Kentucky National Guard had 700 to 1,000 people on orders supporting COVID response. We did things like sanitation, helping to staff non-congregate shelters, doing things to free up healthcare workers so they could provide licensed and certified healthcare. And we provided just general tasks that anyone could do so we could maximize the capabilities for healthcare workers. Then during our COVID response, we had a civil disturbance, two instances of that, two different phases there in Louisville where we supported provided direct support to law enforcement, both Louisville Metro Police and the Kentucky State Police. When we responded in the fall, we focused on critical site and infrastructure security, which is our preferred mission set. Also provided traffic control during both of those events in the spring and the fall there in Louisville. Immediately following that, we had most devastating tornadoes in Kentucky history, as everyone is aware there in Western Kentucky. The images I have there, I'm sure you're all familiar with. The top one is the candle factory prior to the storm, and the bottom one is the candle factory after the storm. So we deployed specialized teams to enter the structure in support of civilian teams, doing searches for survivors as well as casualties. We also did wide area searches for areas affected that weren't confined structures and collapsed structures like the candle factory was. Again, provided traffic control and law enforcement augmentation. And then following, once we got out of the search and rescue phase and went into recovery, manned distribution points to provide meals and supplies to people affected by the storms. Then about 6 months later, we're in Eastern Kentucky responding to historically severe flooding. We provided aerial, ground, and water rescue. Again, initiated wide area search, partnered with civilian teams, looking for survivors as well as casualties, people who were victims of the floods. We provided traffic control and law enforcement augmentation. The star I have right there, I hate to admit it, but both during the tornadoes and during the floods, we had out-of-state looters present in Kentucky and conducting looting within 36 hours of the storms. So we were able to offer eyes and ears out there. As Kentucky Guardsmen, we are authorized in statute to be deputized to effect arrests, but that is really a tertiary response. We prefer to not assume a law enforcement role. Our Agent General, the Governor, agrees, but we do provide eyes and ears and patrolling and awareness for sworn law enforcement and civil authorities to be aware. And again, after we went out of search and rescue and immediate response, we moved into recovery, provided commodity distribution to both individuals at distribution points and helped operate shelters in support of Kentucky Public Health. This year, we responded during the winter storm in January and February. Across the state, we helped open roadways, we helped transport essential personnel, especially here in central Kentucky, meaning doctors, nurses, first responders. And then the flooding in about 45 days after the winter storm, you can see the various responses. So we conducted the largest airlift, largest single airlift that Kentucky had ever done in emergency response from a community affected by the floods. Again, after we got through with the search and rescue response and moved into supporting the communities, we helped open roadways and conduct emergency repairs to allow emergency vehicles to access people affected by the floods, as well as operating distribution points, food, water, basic necessities for affected communities. We also engage in non-emergency missions. Some of the brighter points in our year are supporting Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks, Thunder over Louisville, Riverfest in Northern Kentucky, as well as fairs, festivals, parades. You can see pictures on your screen there. In the bottom left is one of our vehicles that was displayed at the Keeneland Concours d'Elegance car show. We really like getting out in the communities and getting our soldiers and airmen visible. And I'll discuss how you can request those capabilities later on. There on the right-hand side of your screen, you see a list of the type of events, static display of equipment, touch a truck for kids, car shows, just any community event that you want the Guard to be present for. We can come and be present in the community and let our soldiers interact with citizens. So I'd like to talk about our structure a little bit, what kind of our missions are. So we've got approximately 6,500 service members, around 5,800 Army, 700 Air. I think those numbers may actually be a little bit low right now. As the fiscal year changed, we got a briefing from our recruiting who had a really great year, and I think we're closer to 6,750 right now. We have 45 to 50 active armories at any given time, with 4 to 5 armories in a reset or refurbishment status. As we get armories redone, rewired, refurbished, we'll move units out of the oldest armory into that new one and kind of have a continuing cycle where we always have, like I said, 4 to 5 armories that are undergoing renewal and refit. We have larger facilities in Louisville with our Air National Guard, co-located with Muhammad Ali International Airport. Here in Frankfort, we have Boone National Guard Center, which is our state headquarters, where my office, the Directorate of Military Support, is located. My office is co-located with the State Emergency Operations Center, and we work hand in hand with Kentucky Emergency Management day to day. We also have a training facility in Central City, the Wendell H. Ford Regional Training Center. That's our primary and largest training areas. We have 2 smaller training areas, the Hidden Valley and the Disney Training Centers in Eastern Kentucky. The bottom bullet you see on your screen there, we are a dual mission force. So all of our units have a federal mission to be prepared to support the United States Army and the United States Air Force during times of war. So personally, I deployed to Iraq in 07, 08, I deployed to Africa in 12 and 13. Whenever the active component, when their capacity is exceeded, they reach out to the reserves and the National Guard to fill missions that they can't fill to give their guys a break. So day to day, when our guys train, they go to drill, they're training for that federal mission. They're training to be a combat engineer or an artilleryman or a military police officer or a C-130 pilot or whatever their military job is. The National Guard is unique in that we have an additional mission that neither the active component nor the reserves have. And that's a state mission, which we have to be prepared to provide capabilities to the state during emergencies or during routine events like Thunder and Derby and county fairs. So we respond in a state active duty status as basically temporary state employees and not in a federal status. That provides the National Guard with some unique capabilities. If everyone's familiar with the concept of posse comitatus, active duty forces cannot act in a law enforcement role within the continental United States due to posse comitatus limitations. As National Guardsmen in a state active duty or a governor control status, we can provide law enforcement capabilities. That's a fairly high-risk mission with some very specific training, so we try to not provide direct law enforcement augmentation. It's been a long time since we had anyone in the state actually deputized to effect arrests, but we will do partnered patrols and provide support to law enforcement, but we prefer to remain in a support role. Even though we are capable of being deputized, we prefer to not assume that role. So here's a map of the state where all our facilities are located. The patches you see indicate headquarters elements in Richmond, Lexington, Frankfort, Louisville. We did have a headquarters element in Hardin County. It has since relocated to Louisville. But wherever you are in the state, the next county or no more than 2 counties removed, you've got a National Guard Army present and people that are drilling there that can provide support to your communities. Now, when you look at that, you may have a National Guard unit the next county over, and I know we've got some folks on here from Montgomery County. So just a couple counties over, you've got an armory in Nicholas County in Carlisle. So you may think, hey, there's been a flood. I really need some help clearing my roads. So based on the type of unit that is close, we may or may not have that capability close to you. Yeah, there's an armory there in Carlisle, but it's a field artillery unit. It has very limited equipment that's suitable for domestic response. Self-propelled howitzers don't do much for you when floodwaters are rising. So be aware that even though you may have an armory really close, I may have to bring the capability you need from farther away. So in the example of Montgomery County, the closest engineer unit, if you needed it, is probably in Moorhead or Jackson. So here's an overview of our units. We have a Theater Aviation Brigade, which controls helicopters and also has a logistics element. The 138th Operational Fires Command is headquartered out of Lexington. And I'll back up, our Aviation Brigade is headquartered here in Frankfort. So our Operational Fires Command in Lexington is really strictly a headquarters element. They don't have any subordinate companies or battalions. They're just a brigade level headquarters. They've got some trucks, but all they can really provide is manpower, work gloves and boots and, help get trees out of roads and things like that. We have the 30th Division Artillery Headquarters in Louisville. They're the higher headquarters for our subordinate battalions in Glasgow and Lexington. We have the 149th Maneuver Enhancement Brigade headquartered out of Richmond, and that's where our domestic response capabilities really reside. We have 2 battalions of engineers, an MP battalion, and we have a chemical battalion. And those elements are spread all over the state. And I'll talk a little bit about the specialized capabilities in our chemical battalion in just a minute. We have the 123rd Air Wing. Our Air National Guard unit is headquartered in Louisville. They're at Muhammad Ali International Airport. All of their units are there in Louisville, and they've got a lot of capabilities. Everybody sees the C-130s parked there at the airport. But they also have small elements of units that can do search and rescue, and they have engineer and some small amount of engineering equipment and construction equipment. So they can do a lot of stuff. They just don't have the depth of bench that some of our larger Army formations do. We have 75th Troop Command, headquartered in Louisville. Their primary capabilities are transportation. We have 3 truck companies here in Kentucky, and also they're the higher headquarters for our infantry battalion that is focused and based in eastern Kentucky. Then we have Joint Forces headquarters here in Frankfort that is overall command and control of the entire Kentucky Guard, both the Army and Air. So here's kind of a snapshot of some of the capabilities we have. We have infantry units. We have engineers that can do route clearance and countering improvised explosive device missions. We have medical units, cyber units that Captain Douglas will talk more about. We have signal, which is communication. So we have all these capabilities, and you look at our roster, we've got over 7,000 people within the organization. But due to our structure, we also have some restrictions. So really, I can't deploy infantry capabilities or artillery capabilities within the state. Our engineering units that are designed to clear minefields and put out minefields and things like that are really of no use to me here in the state. I can use their construction equipment, and our MPs, so the Army has two basic flavors of MPs. There are law and order MPs that do patrols and provide law enforcement at active duty posts, or whenever they're mobilized. Then there are combat MPs that deal with enemy prisoners of war and route regulation. What we have here in Kentucky are combat MPs. None of them are trained law enforcement officers. So that's why I have that capability kind of amber. Yes, I've got MPs, but they're not civilian law enforcement equivalent. Also, we've got a cyber team here in Kentucky that provides Department of Defense cyber response, but due to restrictions on how we can use our equipment, we can't plug most of our federal equipment into a civilian network and provide cyber assistance for that. Captain Douglas will talk about some additional equipment we've obtained here in Kentucky to provide a smaller scale capability, but we're kind of restricted on what we can do with cyber as well as signal. So we've got a lot of communications equipment. We've got encrypted radios that are very robust, but they're not largely compatible with civilian equipment. Like I can't take the radio in a Humvee and talk to the state police or the sheriff's office. And our medical response is somewhat restricted in that, I've got medics that are equivalent trained to EMTs, but they don't hold a civilian certification, so I can't normally allow them to treat civilians. In cases of life, limb, or eyesight, they can provide immediate first aid and life-saving, but they can't substitute for EMTs to augment ambulance service and rescue squads. Then I'll talk a little bit more about a chemical, biological, radioactive, nuclear, explosive CBRN enterprise in just a minute. So I'll talk about how we deploy our capabilities and some of the restrictions we have. Here's an example, again, of that Carlisle self-propelled field artillery unit. They've got about 70 people, 5 high-axle vehicles, 6 Humvees, and 10 armored vehicles. So if there's a flood and I need high-axle vehicles that can go into floodwaters and get people that are stranded or get people who have floodwaters in their house out of all those personnel and all that equipment, I can assemble 5 high-axle teams. So I can take those 5 trucks, put 10 people each, a driver and a co-driver, and deploy them. So even though I've got an armory full of people based on the capability that's needed, sometimes I'm really limited on what I can offer in the local area. I can always bring additional people in. If Montgomery County and Nicholas County needed more than 5 teams, I can bring people from anywhere in the state. But just be aware that your local response may be kind of bottlenecked based on what their equipment sitting in their motor pool looks like. So here's an example of that high axle team. We publish examples of all the teams we like to deploy out to our units every year. So this shows what their capabilities are, what the equipment they'll require. We need 2 licensed drivers, the different actual trucks, the equipment they could deploy. This helps our units understand what will be expected of them in time of emergency. Because again, they train all year on their artillery tasks or MP tasks, and it's just an additional duty. And I'm trying to kind of divide their attention and help them be prepared to provide that domestic response. So here's an example of some different mission team types that we have our units prepared to deploy: high axle teams, wrecker teams, mobility teams that can help move civilian vehicles, where our wrecker teams focus on commercial vehicles during ice storms, toss teams where we support Department of Forestry saw teams to help drag brush and trees out of the road after they're cut up, transportation teams that we deployed during the last winter storm in the first of the year, moving essential personnel, helping people that are stranded, and distribution teams that it seems like every emergency we always have a need to get food and water and medical supplies out to folks. So commonly used capabilities, largely covered by the teams we deploy. But our number one is that we have a rapidly expandable workforce, meaning that when an ice storm moves in, the transportation cabinet needs to clear roads and get people moving, but they're kind of hindered by, the number of people employed by the transportation cabinet doesn't change in January and February when we get ice storms. The same people that are repairing roadways in the summer are having to open roadways in the winter. We're uniquely positioned in that I've got 7,000 people in the Kentucky National Guard. About 6,500 of those have a different job during the week. They are putting tires on Camrys at Toyota. They're stocking shelves at a Kroger somewhere. They're working in a city hall. They're teaching school. I can pull them in during times of emergency and provide that overflow and that workforce to meet the need until local and state capabilities are fully deployed and the situation is controlled to the point that the day-to-day employees of those cabinets can handle it. We can provide rough terrain and high axle vehicles. So other than the Kentucky National Guard hoist capability, there's only one aircraft in the state that has rescue hoist, and that's the Kentucky State Police Huey. However, currently, most of our hoist helicopters are on a federal mobilization supporting combatant commanders overseas. However, we do have agreements with other states, such as during the flooding last spring. West Virginia folks came in, or maybe it was Virginia. Helicopters came in to support us during that massive airlift. During the floods of 2022, we had Tennessee and West Virginia helicopters come in, so we have standing agreements and awareness and monthly touch points with these supporting states, so that if there is, God forbid, another flood like we had in July of 22, we know who to call. There's other states aware that they're watching weather in Kentucky, making sure they have air crews ready to support us if needed. We provide roadway clearance, we provide traffic control, and again, we provide law enforcement augmentation in a limited role. Both the governor and the adjutant general are required to sign off on any direct law enforcement support that we provide. So some of our specialized capabilities, we have what we call the SURF-P. I won't read the very lengthy title, but they were designed to address chemical and explosive hazards. So they have search and extraction teams like the one that went into the candle factory. They do wide area search. They can do mass decontamination if there were a chemical spill at a factory. And they have a fatality search and recovery team that have mobile mortuary trailers. Sad to say, but our fatality search and recovery team has been deployed multiple times in the past couple of years. They went to support Hurricane Helene response in the Carolinas, and it's something that I never thought of. Most local coroners are working out of a funeral home that has capacity for maybe 2 or 3 people, but you have a disaster that strikes the counties and they're almost immediately overwhelmed, and we can provide that immediate response and capacity to augment the civil authorities during those times. Additionally, our search and extraction teams and our wide area search teams are trained to civilian standards. So if you're familiar with the ICS, Incident Command System concept, they're trained on their reporting standards, so they can immediately augment Rescue Squad or Team Rubicon or any organization that provides wide area search and extraction capabilities. And we also have a civil support team that does direct support to law enforcement investigations. They're focused on chemical and explosive detection and identification. They have the only mobile certified lab in the state. They routinely support Louisville, Northern Kentucky, some of the larger organizations, as well as the FBI. So in addition to all of our domestic response missions and capabilities, the Kentucky National Guard also engages, in addition to our formal federal missions, in the State Partnership Program. So we have enduring relationships with Djibouti in East Africa and Ecuador in South America. Personally, I've been to Ecuador twice in the past 12 months, and I was in Djibouti last year. So we will send basically subject matter experts there to do an information exchange for a week-long mission. So in Ecuador, in the past couple of years, we've done emergency response, we've done helicopter training. In Djibouti, we've done emergency response, we've done engineers. We'll go and tell them how we do things in Kentucky and receive information from them on how they, Djibouti explains how they maintain bulldozers in very arid and hot environments so that our engineers understand that if they're deployed to those areas. And both of those programs are National Guard wide. So every state has at least one partner nation. A lot of states have two, and there's a few states that are working on a third partner. But here in Kentucky, we have Djibouti and Ecuador, both very warm places, nice for a break in the wintertime. So some of our authorities and limitations. So for our state active duty, the governor has exclusive authority to order the National Guard into state active duty status. He delegates that authority down to my office by issuing 4 executive orders every year, one for emergency response, one for all hazards planning and exercises, fairs, festivals, and observances, and counter drug. So he predefines conditions that we don't have to go to the governor and ask before deploying folks to your counties during times of need. There are a lot of states where if there's a flood at 2 a.m., they've got to get their emergency management director and the governor out of bed and get paperwork signed before they can deploy their National Guard. Our process in Kentucky is much more streamlined, much more effective. I talked to folks in other states, and I'm really glad we've got the structures that we do. In addition to the governor's statutory authority, the adjutant general has authority under a separate statute to order people into Guard to support, for internal support to the National Guard. So if one of our armories gets hit by a tornado and our vault is compromised or our intrusion detection systems are compromised, I can place people in state active duty status to respond to our internal needs as well. So our plan is to be a backup or tertiary response to almost all the emergency support functions that Kentucky EM staffs at the order of the governor. So our emergency response is generally going to require a state or a county or even a city declaration of emergency to qualify us, for lack of a better term, for the conditions specified in the executive order. Our response time, some communities, depending on what you need, we can have a team there as short as 4 hours or maybe 24 hours. Our engineer equipment is really concentrated in far eastern and far western Kentucky. So if you have a need for engineer equipment in, say, Hardin or Nelson County in central Kentucky, it's going to take me a while to get that equipment on trailers and to you. Where if you have a non-specific need, like, hey, I just need folks to help my road crew clear cut trees out of the road. Man, I've got guys with work gloves and safety glasses all over the state. I can probably have a team there much faster than those specialized capabilities. So for special events, outside of emergencies, we can do color guards, parades. We have salute cannons. So we were at, I can't remember the last cannon salute we did, but high school homecomings, college homecomings, we can provide salute cannons during those games. Traffic control, make sure everybody stays safe at the Casey County Apple Festival or the Nicholas County Blackberry Festival. We can't do security without being partnered with civilian law enforcement. So if you want to request partnered patrols, the request has to come with has to come from the supported law enforcement agency. So we know who the chief is and we can reach out to him and get specifications, and that would have to be vetted through the governor's office and by our adjutant general. And that's a consequence of the first round of riots in Louisville, really, when we were put into a deadly force situation. Additionally, some restrictions we have to operate under. I won't read the Army regulation, but basically we can't put soldiers in a role of doing menial tasks. Like we can't do valet parking with uniformed service members. We're not supposed to do escorts at beauty pageants and things like that. We just have to be very careful about how we use our guys and what the public perception is. We don't want them to, again, be placed in a role of baggage handlers and what Department of the Army would call menial tasks. And all of our public affairs and community engagement events are vetted through our public affairs office. So they do an ethics review and just to make sure we're staying on the right side of Department of the Army and Department of Defense regulations. So some of our challenges, I mentioned before, location of our equipment if you need a very specific capability, and even for static display, if you wanted a self-propelled howitzer, super cool armored vehicle to come to your 4th of July celebration, it's really hard for us to do that. We'd have to contract a commercial truck to haul it, a lot of cost, a lot of pre-planning. Emergency response, I mentioned the timeline to get maybe engineer equipment if you need specialized stuff. And on top of that, specialized equipment requires a specialized operator. There's a military licensing system for everything from Humvees to mine detectors. So I have to find both available equipment and available operators that can get to your event or your need in the time that you need them. We can't replace civilian capabilities. So if a civilian organization or business can provide a capability, we're not supposed to take their place. If something can be contracted, it should be contracted. That being said, if you need assistance with clearing roadways, and yes, you could contract with a commercial company, but it's going to take 2 weeks to get it in place, we can come in and fill that gap. Kentucky Emergency Management can help your county emergency management contract support, but we can fill that gap until the contract is in place. So don't take that as, hey, we can't do that. We may just be time limited on how long we provide that capability. If you have local needs, the Innovative Readiness Training Program, if you reach out to my office, we can provide some capabilities like we've done earth moving. If a high school wants to build a new weight room, it's about a year and a half planning process. A lot of evaluation approvals have to be made at the federal level to make sure that we're not stealing business from local companies. But it's something we're glad to explore, and we can explain it at greater length if you reach out. Again, my contact information is at the end of this slide deck. Again, any law enforcement augmentation requests are vetted very closely. We prefer to do non-law enforcement tasks to free up law enforcement. I'm trying to watch my time here. If your county emergency manager calls my office and requests MPs to do direct law enforcement augmentation, I'm going to be the guy that asks, well, what are your constables doing? What are your special deputies doing? Make sure that all those local resources are fully utilized and that we're actually accepting an overflow before we start staffing that mission and presenting it to state leadership. So planning and outreach. So our primary focus for years in the Kentucky National Guard has been that respond quadrant and what we do during the emergency. We've moved into understanding that during that response, we're setting conditions for long-term recovery, and we've started to take more of a role in the preparation phase as well. So in military plans, we always look at the most dangerous course of action that we could face and the most likely course of action that we could face. So for years, we planned for the most dangerous thing to happen to Kentucky, which is a New Madrid seismic event. And we poured really all of our planning time into that. A couple years ago, we stepped back and really looked at how we were organizing our planning and realized that our most likely course of action we would face is localized responses. Because even though the flooding in Eastern Kentucky was terrible, it wasn't on the scale that a New Madrid response would probably be. So we've really focused on more of our planning into localized emergencies, that are within a county or regional, as opposed to a statewide disaster, because that's where the majority of our responses take place. So in 2022, 2023, we started sending teams out to every county. At this point, every county has been visited I believe, twice. So as elected leadership changes or a new emergency manager is hired, we go back into counties. We have a standard presentation we do outlining what our capabilities are, how to request those capabilities during an emergency. We also gather information from you all. What does the worst day in Montgomery County look like? We were not aware until we sat down with Montgomery County Emergency Management that there's a food factory there that has an ammonia-based refrigerant system. So like if a tornado hit that plant, there'd be an ammonia cloud that would potentially cover their local healthcare facility. So if we go into Montgomery County for tornado response, that's kind of a worst case for them. And their needs would be to evacuate the immediate area around that manufacturing facility as well as the healthcare facility. So as we've compiled that data, that's informed like what kind of teams at the county level we potentially need to deploy, and that informs the guidance that we give to our subordinate units to plan during the year. So more recently, we've done a large-scale communications exercise in August of last year based on a New Madrid scenario. We kind of shadowed the Tennessee National Guard during a New Madrid scenario exercise in May of this year. Our Air National Guard did an exercise focused on aircraft movement and simulating, flying into Western Kentucky and evacuating casualties and evacuating hospitals with C-130s in the event of a New Madrid scenario. Then we do monthly seminars and tabletop exercises with Kentucky Emergency Management. So how to request us. So emergency requests, we can always respond in what is labeled immediate response authority. So if we're in a annual training or if we're at a regular National Guard drill, we can still respond to immediate emergencies regardless of what we're doing. If we have notice ahead of time, we can bring people into state active duty, but our guardsmen and our airmen are available regardless of their duty status if there is immediate threat to life, limb, or eyesight. Resource requests should come through WebEOC, which your county emergency managers have access to. Route that through the appropriate ESF and we'll get the overflow. We request that they not come direct to the National Guard. We want those to be vetted and reviewed by the other supporting ESFs first. And we'd ask that you identify a problem or a capability gap. Don't ask for 10 guys and 5 trucks. Tell me, hey, I need about 200 people evacuated from 5 locations, and I'll figure out how many trucks you need to get that done in a timely fashion. In the box on the right, you see the response echelons and kind of where we fall. So we're the last echelon within the state before we start reaching out to other states within our FEMA region. So event support requests. So if you can screenshot or take a picture of this, if you want us to come and do a fair, if you want a speaker for a Veterans Day event, this is how you request that. Personally, I'm speaking at a high school here in Frankfort and an elementary school here in Frankfort on Veterans Day. We love getting our soldiers out when there's not an emergency to have some face time with the community and have some interaction. So again, we love to get these. Email address is there at the bottom. If you go to the link, it has the official request form as well as the email address to submit that to. We want at least 30 days notice. More is better. If you've got a 4th of July parade you want us to participate in, and you know for sure when it is, go ahead and get that request in now, and I'll pre-task that unit and make sure that they don't have other training going on during those days. Just to close out before I hand it over to Captain Douglas. So some of the communication we've had within Kentucky as we've gone into counties are to compare worst days planning. So the map you see there are Kentucky EM areas that are color-coded as well as nationwide what our FEMA regions are. So if you see in FEMA Region 4, Kentucky is the northernmost state in FEMA Region 4. So the primary threat in Region 4 is hurricanes. You look at North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, all those coastline states, their worst day is a hurricane. So one of the reasons they've structured the FEMA regions as they are, hurricanes aren't a direct threat to Kentucky. Yeah, we can get some flooding on the back end, but we're largely unaffected. So we can be a force provider to those hurricane states in their day of need. Conversely, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi are all New Madrid states. Our worst day is a New Madrid event. Largely does not affect the rest of FEMA Region 4. So Georgia, Alabama, North and South Carolina can all be force providers to us whenever New Madrid happens. So when we go into counties, we try to offer the same model as you make mutual assistance agreements. One of the things post-floods that we found out were counties would say, well, yeah, we had a mutual assistance agreement with the next county over, but they were flooded just as bad as we were. So as you're making plans and talking to other counties, if your worst day is the exact same as their worst day, then you don't have any support agreements. You need to go 2 counties over or into the next watershed to find a county that has a different worst day than you do, to find somebody that can support you, when that happens. So I like this graphic. Again, at the state level, post floods, we've got a limited number of engineers. Everybody needed help. And we don't discount that it's the absolute worst day that County A has ever had, and it's the absolute worst day that County B has ever had. But at the state level, we have to assess where the need is greater and apply resources appropriately. So there's local, state, and national implications for that. So going back to a New Madrid scenario, here in Kentucky, it's going to be the worst day Kentucky ever had. Federal resources are going to pour into St. Louis and Memphis because those are the major population centers that are going to be devastated by New Madrid. So we have to be aware in our planning that we're going to have to rely on help coming from farther away, and we're going to be on our own for the first 48 to 72 hours, more than likely. We can get some rotor wing helicopters from other states in to help with SAR, but as far as ground assistance, we're on our own for the first 48 to 72 hours. So be aware of that when you talk to your county emergency planners, if you're involved in that process, and make your plans accordingly. Where's your help coming from? How long is it going to take to get there? And as our team comes in, ask those questions. Well, hey, if I needed a bulldozer, how long would it take me to get that? And our county visit teams can provide that information. If not there on the spot, they can follow up with you. So here's contact information. I'll pause a minute for any questions or comments, and then I'll hand it over to Captain Douglas. All right, so I've either done a great job explaining it, or I've been so opaque that nobody understood at all. But I appreciate y'all's attention, and again, I'll hand it over to Captain Douglas to talk about our cyber capabilities.
Good morning, everybody. Captain Jaden Douglas, Kentucky National Guard. I'm a signal officer, and I'm also a cyber task force coordinator for our Kentucky Cyber Resilience Initiative team. A little bit of background on our team. Oh, sorry. There we go. So we put together this task force about a year ago. As we noticed, several other states have put together something similar. Basically, we want to have a full-time force ready to respond to any kind of cybersecurity events that happen in the state. In the state, over the last 5 years, we've had several different types of ransomware attacks and other cyber incidents that have affected our healthcare industries and our local governments. Were the 2 big targets. And the big thing we're noticing is with cyber criminals these days, they're not going after the biggest prize. They're just trying to get in and disrupt wherever they can. So it's very important to try to take all of the steps that we can on the left side of an incident to prevent these attacks from having as great of an impact as they have been. So we are a National Guard organization. However, we have several partners with our federal counterparts, such as CISA, our state counterparts with Kentucky Office of Homeland Security and the Commonwealth Office of Technology. We have memorandums of understanding with each of those, and we help us and they help them out. And we all operate under the new Emergency Support Function 17. The lead agency for that is the Office of Homeland Security, and they may get a mission for that, and we can provide some extra assistance. We have 2 cyber units in the state, as Colonel Stafford was mentioning earlier. We have a defensive cyber operations element, which is based out of Frankfort, and they are there strictly to fulfill that state mission. On the federal side, out of Louisville, we have a cyber protection team. So in total, between those two, we have roughly 30 to 45 M-Day or drill status soldiers that are available to respond to cyber incidents. And then we additionally have our full-time force with the Cyber Resilience Initiative out of Frankfort. We have about 5 on that state active duty status right now. So some of the big things we're doing, outreach. A lot of people don't know the resources that are available to them. And as I mentioned before, we work primarily on that left side, but we are there to respond after an incident as well. But on the left side, we can provide cybersecurity awareness training, tabletop exercises, tools training. And I understand a lot of the counties work with a managed service provider. We can work with that organization, give them some training, or just kind of left seat, right seat with them to see what policies they have in place, what's working, and what the national standard is, and see if we can get your organizations up to that national standard. So a little bit of the why behind our program. As I was mentioning earlier, these cyber criminals are just trying to get their foot in the door wherever they can, and unfortunately that primarily is going to be the healthcare industry and local government industries. So some statistics over here on the left side, 73% of the ransomware attacks that happened in the U.S. in 2023 affected state and local governments. 1 in 3 of those, 1 in 3 local governments have reported a cyber incident within the last 12 months. That is nationwide. And so it's not a matter of if these are going to happen, it's a matter of when. And cyber incidents where they are inevitable these days, their impact is optional. So that's what our team does. We try to get in on the left side of an incident as much as possible with training, vulnerability assessments, and trying to mitigate all of the security risks that may already be within an organization. Even the Department of Defense, we're not perfect, and cybersecurity is a constantly evolving field. So we're having to reassess ourselves constantly too, to make sure we are trying to catch all of these vulnerabilities as soon as they come out. So here's some of our specific capabilities and services. I covered these earlier. So the big one we would like to offer with the counties is the network vulnerability assessments. A couple things to hit on. We are a non-regulatory organization, so we'll go out to a county, work with your managed service provider, whichever organization that you would like us to assess. And we'll provide you a list of all of our findings and a way to remediate those, and we can train and advise your managed service provider on how to implement those. And then ultimately our goal is to reassess within 6 to 9 months later and see that those vulnerabilities have been captured and remediated. Cybersecurity awareness training. This could be for your IT staff, or this could be just for your end users, the ones operating the machines every day. This could be what your password complexity should look like, what your policy should look like, how to spot a phishing email, so on and so forth. This is just basic cyber hygiene that we in the military, we have to take this course every single year called just cybersecurity awareness. But we can provide a version of that to your counties as well. We currently go out to the area development districts with our Office of Homeland Security and CISA partners to provide this. And if you're interested in attending one of those, feel free to reach out to me. I have my contact information at the end to see if one of those trainings is close to you. And I'm also aware that the emergency management or county government teams are required to have so many training hours a year. These can also count for some of those training hours. Policy and planning support. So policy, and when it comes to cybersecurity, it is kind of a new thing, and it's a lot to get one established and get some in place. But our team can come out and help support you in that process. Incident response, as I mentioned before, we have that team of 5 that's ready on standby to respond to cybersecurity incidents. Ransomware is just the biggest one right now, but any kind of cybersecurity incident that's going to hinder your operations or exposes any PII of any of your local citizens, that's where we can come in and support. We are there to support state agencies, federal agencies, but also critical infrastructure. So if your organization falls into that, we are more than happy to come out there and help. Some grants and resources to be aware of. The main one I like to pitch is the State and Local Cybersecurity Grant Program. This is offered by CISA every year. I believe last year it was somewhere around 8 million they supplied across the nation. And there's a long list of things that this can apply for, all the way from getting some cybersecurity programs and licensing, or upgrading your physical security of your server room. There's a long list on which that can apply. It's always good to just make sure you apply for that one. The rest of these are emergency management, pretty standard ones, but you can use those for cybersecurity resilience as well. And Cyber Bluegrass, registration just closed for this last Friday, but I did want to make you all aware of this because we're going to start doing this every year. This is a really good opportunity for your managed service providers or your IT teams to come out and get some face time with other IT folks in the state, your state organizations such as Homeland Security and us, as well as the federal sides too. We have some really good vendors that are coming out and going to provide some training as well. I like to describe this as the best way to train for a cybersecurity incident without actually having to go through one. So it's a very realistic scenario with real TTPs or tactics that cyber adversaries are using right now against these organizations. So it's aimed at the SLTT, the state and local tribal and territorial groups, for you all to come up and get some cybersecurity training with us here in Frankfort. And here I have our contact information, that QR code on the bottom right. If you'd like to request us to come out and perform a vulnerability assessment, or any of the things that I've mentioned before, you can just scan there and request us. Obviously, if you have a cybersecurity incident, that needs to go through WebEOC, and then that'll get pushed down to us. But anything on the left side of an incident, feel free to scan that QR code or reach out to either one of those emails there, and we'd be more than happy to come out and assist.